prosecution would like to call Professor Heisenberg. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You stayed in Germany even though the Nazi regime was dismissing your Jewish colleagues. Why was this?
Well, at first we thought that we could stop or at least delay the dismissals, but when that failed, I still felt that I could best serve my country by staying. I wanted to be there to help rebuild physics from the damage that was clearly being done by the National Socialist regime.
So, you wanted to stay and help the Nazis?
Well, that's not the case. I wanted what was best for Germany, and I had people who depended on me, my students, my colleagues. I couldn't just leave them to fend for themselves.
After the war broke out, you worked on developing atomic weapons for the Germans. Is this true?
Well, I didn't really work on atomic weapons. I spent most of the war trying to create a sustained chain reaction in uranium for a reactor. We almost had it as well. We simply didn't have enough uranium. It was a great shame. Of course, at the time we did not realize how far ahead the Americans were. We had assumed that we were in the lead.
But you offered atomic weapons to the military. Instead, you produced weapons of nuclear power.
We only stressed the possibility of weapons at one point, where the continued funding of our project was in doubt. And we at no point made a push for the sort of effort that the Americans required to develop their bomb. We thought to turn the situation to our advantage, to allow us to continue our work. We considered it something of a joke on the military.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honour.
Afternoon, Professor Heisenberg. Professor Heisenberg, at any point were you ever a member of the Nazi Party?
No, I tried to stay out of politics where I could. I thought that physics and politics should not be mixed. I didn't agree with the way the National Socialists went about their business.
And why did you join the weapons program?
I didn't really have a choice in the matter. I was ordered to take part in the project. When the war started, I was expecting to be drafted into the army, so I was somewhat surprised and also relieved to continue with my physics.
Did you believe at any point that an atomic weapon was possible?
At first, no. I originally calculated the quantity of pure uranium oxide required for a reactor as 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms, which is a huge quantity of oxide. And we knew that a bomb would require enriched uranium, which at the time we thought would be impossible to put into practice. Of course, this all changed when we realized in the 40s that plutonium would be a suitable candidate for it and would be much easier to separate than uranium-235. At that point, our position became much more difficult. We believed that if we kept working at our own pace, a bomb would never be developed before the end of the war.
You use the expression "at our own pace." Could you please elaborate on that?
Well, we felt that if we remained in control of the research project, Heisenberg and I in particular, that we could avoid a great push to develop the weapons. As the war drew on, it became clear to us that the resources required would be too much for the German economy, which was quite relieving in a sense. We did not want a bomb to be developed by anyone.
Thank you very much. No further questions, Your Honour.
The prosecution would like to call Professor Von Back. Good afternoon. You were interned at Heisenberg in Farm Hall, England. Is this correct?
Yes, it's true. We were captured after the war by the British forces and transferred to Farm Hall, along with other German physicists.
During your time there, an atomic bomb was dropped over Russia. Could you tell us what happened and how Heisenberg reacted to the news?
When the news was announced, we were all shocked. We did not know that the Americans had produced a bomb. Later on, Heisenberg admitted, only grudgingly, that he had never made the calculations necessary for an atomic bomb. Indeed, he had believed that the Americans would not be able to create the atomic bomb before the end of the war. A week later, he worked intensely to try and explain us how the Allies had done it. While he made progress, he did not get all the calculations right.
What do you think of Heisenberg's claim that he deliberately withheld atomic bombs from Hitler?
During our time at Farm Hall, I saw this theory begin to emerge. It was mainly propagated by Carl Friedrich von Weizsäcker, one of Heisenberg's colleagues during the nuclear program. Heisenberg eventually came around to Weizsäcker's argument. He then said that he had not believed the weapons were possible, and in his heart he had been glad.
In 1956, Robert Judge published a book called Brighter Than 1,000 Suns. This book backed the theory that the conspiracy around Heisenberg had saved the world from Nazi nuclear weapons. How did Heisenberg react to this?
In public, Heisenberg always restricted himself to hints and ambiguous remarks. As a consequence, this tacitly strengthened the conspiracy theory.
I have here a letter written by Heisenberg in 1970. In it, he claims that he falsified the mathematical calculations along with and yourself to deny nuclear weapons to Hitler. What do you think of this?
Well, this claim is not only false, it is tragically absurd. I never made any calculations for nuclear weapons and never was involved in any conspiracy theory.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honour?
Good afternoon, Professor. Could you please tell us what you did during the war?
When the war started, I was 50, and I was too old to serve the army. Therefore, I continued my research at my institute.
I have a letter here written by you during the war, which is signed Heil Hitler. We all know that you're anti-Nazi, so can you explain why you wrote this?
During the war, you could not blatantly show your opposition to Hitler. This would get you killed. Therefore, I had to find a way to survive, although I was against the regime, so sometimes I had to compromise.
No further questions, John. Thank you.
We'll now move on to the closing statements by the prosecution and defence.